Mike Brown tried to stick with Domantas Sabonis on Saturday. It's a tough move. It was a tough spot for Mike to be in. And I got to give him credit. I cannot stand, and you can't either, challenges in the first half. Generally challenges before the fourth quarter. But in that case, Mike Brown, he challenged a Sabonis call. I think it was Bam Adebayo. A Sabonis foul. And not only did he win the challenge, but the foul got switched from Sabonis to Adebayo, which means that Domantas Sabonis got called for 7 fouls on Saturday. I'm not saying every foul sucked, and I know you don't have your headphones here, so forgive us here, but here's the foul call on Sabonis to knock him out of the game.
Loose ball foul called. They call it on Sabonis. Yes.
It was garbage, and we went over that in the post game. The ref, it was the ref near half court. Sabonis down low there were 2 other refs that had better angles. It was the ref that had the worst angle out of all 3. Not only was it a bad call, but it was one of those wait for the shot to fall. Oh, he missed the shot. Okay, now let's call the foul like 20 minutes after the play itself, Frankie. But Mike Brown was able to recover the team, and De'Aaron Fox and the rest of those guys got the win. Yeah, and Mike Brown, I mean, he's been going to those calls early, the coaches' challenges, and this one did work out. It gave Sabonis a little extra time on the floor, but the fact that having Sabonis off the floor so late, kind of changing that trajectory of the game, that was tough. But what's even kind of bigger for this team is the fact that they were able to kind of string it together. And Richaun Holmes, he didn't have, I mean, his numbers don't jump off the page, but his contributions late were huge. I mean, he didn't play the ideal rim protection that the Kings have been looking for, but it was enough to hold off Adebayo, and guys like Kevin Huerter stepped up, Keegan Murray with a 22-point game, especially on a night where De'Aaron Fox isn't scoring 30 points. That's kind of what this team needs in order to be successful. So the fouls were I mean, it's Kings fans are no stranger to questionable calls, as we all know. The last couple of games specifically have been interesting, to say the least, but the fact that they were able to pull through and beat a good Heat team, that's a positive.
I think one thing, Frankie, that stands out, it's 5 games, so it's not the full sample size that we need, but inside presence, you're just talking about rim protection, but whether it's, Sabonis is a good rebounder, but like the Memphis game, Adams got all the critical rebounds. I think the Kings have gotten bigger on the wings, but that missing paint presence seems like it might be an issue for this team.
Yeah, and it's going to be, in my opinion, until they address it. And that's just going to mean that guys like Sabonis have to step up. And I don't think he's been a slouch really the whole season, but he does get attacked often in the paint. And he obviously, I think I talked about it with you guys last week, and especially on the afternoon show. He's I don't know if he's lost some size in the offseason, but he seems to be getting bodied a little more than usual down there. And again, Justice Winslow, Steven Adams, Bam Adebayo, these are guys that have given him a little bit of a tough time here. So it's going to come down to, will the Kings get to a point where Monty McNair needs to really go out and address it? And if Richaun Holmes is not able to be the answer to that, and Alex Len, we saw he got a little run, and he maybe is more effective in that role as a rim protector. And even he isn't a top shelf rim protector in the NBA. So it might come to a point where the Kings, if they don't string together some wins and they don't find themselves in a place where we're in the holiday season and they're not at or near 500, we could see maybe some moves being made. In just his last 2 games, Sabonis has averaged 15.5 points, 9 boards, 6 assists on 12 of 15 shooting, including 5 of 6 from the line. For example, 18, 7, and 3 on 8 of 9 shooting in just 23 minutes against the Heat, because he was in foul trouble. And what you saw against both of those, now with Steven Adams, that's a big body in the middle. But yesterday you had a 6'9" Bam Adebayo as the big for Miami. We've talked about this since before. I sound like a broken record. They were 4-0 in the preseason. The one big they went against worth a damn was Anthony Davis. He had a double-double in the first half pretty much. They're going to struggle on interior defense. They're going to struggle against big-time centers. To your point, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And whether Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox and friends figure it out early, or they've already figured it out and there's just nothing out there, they have to do something down low. You're not going to be able to survive this year, Jason, with Domantas Sabonis can't anchor your defense.
Right.
And he's getting a bunch of crap for it. I'll say it again. It's asking the dog to moo. He's not a defensive anchor, but they're asking him to do that. And I think that's a major miscalculation on the part of Monty McNair and Mike Brown.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know. I guess then Frankie, the counter is to get everything they can offensively out of him, which that's where his skill set really has ramped up. And I think what that's shown, and I was just talking about with this, Dave, with this in the last segment, I think coach got the starters right. I think he's playing him the right amount of minutes. Now the next part is to have the bench have an impact, and that's kind of missing right now.
That's kind of one of the big, in my opinion, the most glaring issue is their bench production. And Trey Lyles, a guy who didn't play at all last game against Memphis. I think the Kings went 12 players deep in the first half. He's the only player that doesn't play in the whole game. They bring in the other guys off the bench like Chima Monecki. They bring in Matthew Dellavedova late. No Trey Lyles. First person off the bench on Saturday, Trey Lyles. And yeah, he was, I mean, I don't want to say great, but 10 points off the bench. That leads the Kings bench scoring. Nobody else really picks it up. I mean, Malik Monk's been kind of hot or cold, and that's kind of been one of the things I've been watching for is can Malik Monk put together some consecutive games here? The Kings need that scoring punch off the bench. You can't rely on Trey Lyles to be that on every given night, obviously. So if they can kind of figure out their bench guys, and Davion Mitchell's at the top of that list, he's been struggling on offense, even though his defense has been pretty much what we've been seeing from Davion Mitchell over the past year as a King. But Terrence Davis seems like he's out of the rotation. I thought he'd be a guy who'd be bringing a scoring punch off the bench. Malik Monk, Terrence Davis, Davion Mitchell, those have been the guys, Rashawn Holmes, who have not been producing so far. So I'm not sure if Mike Brown's going to stick with this rotation. It still has not really been rounded out, in my opinion. There's still some work that needs to be done, but obviously you need more than you're getting.
6 players off the bench against the Heat, 9 off the bench versus the Grizzlies. Mike Brown did say, I'm going to start paring down this rotation a little bit. I think he's almost there. We talked about this on Friday, Jason. I'd like to see him have like right around a 10-man rotation, whether it's an 8-man or 10, somewhere in between 8 and 10, I think is the sweet spot. Not everybody can play. This isn't community center, little league, whatever you want to call it, basketball. This is the NBA. Not everybody deserves those minutes. I'll give him a pass in the beginning because he's trying to figure out rotations. You have to play people to figure out your rotations, but at some point he's going to have to lock it in.
And I hope it's the same 10, same 9, because I think when it can't just be like you just brought up, Frankie, like it's Okpala starting, then doesn't play. It's Trey Lyles is the one that doesn't play, then he's the first sub. I think if Mitchell and Monk and Holmes, that group knows they're coming in, unless, foul trouble or something extreme in ejection, that's different. But I think they need to define these roles.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be comfortable in your role. You want to have some repetition. You want to be able to know what your role is going to be on every given night. Now, in professional sports, that's not a luxury a lot of guys that are in those bench roles have. But we know this right now about the Kings. Their starting 5 is good. I think the numbers show that it's good. And the rest is a question mark. And that's going to be a problem come injury time. And it's a matter of when, not if. And you have to hope it's not too extreme and it's not too long that some guys come out, but over the course of an NBA season, that's going to happen. And we've seen that some guys can play well in a starting role. Like Davion Mitchell played well in a starting role. Rashawn Holmes, I mean, he earned his stay in Sacramento and got that contract off of being a starter. But it's going to come down to, can these guys learn their roles, get comfortable with them, and can it translate to wins?
Frankie Cartoscelli in with us. You can read him on Sactown Sports, follow him on Twitter, look at his videos, get all your Kings Insider information from him. I said to Jason that this is my favorite game De'Aaron Fox has ever played. And I know that's a big statement, but I'm talking about what he did in the fourth quarter defensively. I'm talking about him taking Tyler Hero on and winning that battle. I really felt like this was the type of leader and type of complete player. He wasn't great, 17 points, under 50% shooting, but I felt like this was really the unlocked Mario Star version of De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, it's been the biggest, I think people would say has been his Achilles heel. Is this a defensive effort? I guess consistent defensive effort would be the best way to put that, because you've seen over the years he can turn it on when he wants to. He's so athletic and he's quick and he can defend those guys that are quicker on the floor. And I think we got to see that perfectly against the Heat. I mean, Tyler Hero was giving the Kings buckets, finished with 34, I think, but I think the last minute or two of the game, De'Aaron, I think it was 4 or 5 possessions stopped him. So that changes the game. I mean, it was a 1-possession game for a couple minutes there. And if that doesn't happen, I mean, we've seen the Kings blow leads a million times over the years. So the fact that De'Aaron has shown he can turn it on when he wants to, and right now is keeping it going for a majority of these games, it's encouraging, because that's been the one thing he's been missing. He is an offensive player. He's so gifted. The shooting's been there, and now the defense has been there. And I think that kind of recipe is going to lead to an all-star season if the Kings are successful. That's going to take, the All-Star game is political, and a lot of people want to care.
Sure.
Some care, some don't. I think it is important to De'Aaron. I think that's something he wants a goal he wants to attain. So it's going to take defense, though, and that's what he's shown so far.
That's our Kings insider, Frankie Cartoscelli. Like I said, read him on Sactown Sports. Check out his videos. Follow. What's your Twitter?
It's F Cartoscelli 3. Tough to spell, but if you just type in Frankie C on Twitter, it should pop up.
It should pop up. There you go. Thank you, Frank. We'll talk to Frankie every Monday right around this time. When we come back, we talk to him every Monday at 8 o'clock unless he's traveling. It's the Athletics. Matt Barrow.